Hello, everyone, and welcome to December's Join Me meeting. I'm glad Emily was a little behind or she sent out the wrong link because I'm not quite prepared myself, so it's all good. Okay, to go over the USEAM items that were addressed in, I think it was November 30th was the meeting. You'll see on the agenda for today. The first thing they talked about was they have an application for any of your paraeducators that are looking at wanting to get certified in special ed to become a teacher. There's some scholarships available for that. And from my understanding, there are a few requirements, but most of your paras would meet the criteria. So if they're interested, it is due May 15th. And you can contact Tana at the special ed department at USBE. Second one was a special ed rules update. They are doing a revision on the rules and policies. I've mentioned this before, so just realize when we do, for those of you that have discrepancy for your SLD criteria, we'll need to change that at the time that we do the update. So just be aware of that. That'll be coming sometime at the very beginning of next year / end of summer. More just a reminder. The next item they had was Indicator 13, and for those of you that may recall, that is your transition indicator as far as the transition plans go. Remember, those must be conducted each year beginning at age 14 for the students. So when you are doing the IEPs each year, you need to be updating your transition plans. And again, you need to make sure that you're doing an assessment related to that, and that needs to be done prior to the current or to the IEP that's being held. And they did say that the transition assessment should be done yearly as well, along with the plans. Prior to the current or to the IEP. Oh. You will write the results of that information in your present levels and making sure that there's a copy of the assessments that were used in the student's file. And again, making sure that you include the IEP teams, the parents, and the students when you're doing these things, obviously. And they talked about using multiple assessments, not just relying on one assessment tool to make those decisions for those assessment plans. Let me mention something quickly. If you're looking for any supporting documentation for any of the items that we're covering today in Join Me, Emily's been kind enough to upload that information onto the our Google Drive. So any supporting documentation from USEAM, handouts, things like that, that's where you can find them. They did have a career development credential. This would apply to our high schools. Do we have high schools on the attendee list?
I can check.
1 second, guys. May not.
No, no high schools.
Okay, so I will not go over that, but there is a career development credential that can be offered to special ed students if they meet certain criteria. That information is on one of those handouts in the Google Doc, but that pertains more to the.
I'm sorry, we do have Vicki online.
Okay, Vicki. So they'll want to maybe look at that information. It's on the Google Doc. If you have a problem accessing that, let Emily know, and she can make sure you can get access to the Google Doc. Moving down on the USEAM agenda things, on the Join Me agenda, we have the placement. They talked about, again, all charters, all districts must have a full continuum of placement options. And the difference between placement and location. So again, placement is along the continuum of the placements. So general education, special ed with services, special schools, special classes, those are more placement. Locations are where students are going to receive some services. And location doesn't necessarily impact your placement. So you don't necessarily need to inform parents each time a location change is made, but obviously with a placement, that comes into an IEP team decision. Yeah, they did stress the need to avoid making predeterminations when it comes to placement. You can have, I call them staffing meetings prior to a meeting with a parent where maybe you discuss some different options that are available, but make sure that you're not making a determination on those placements until you have that IEP with the parents involved. No predetermination. We then went into a discussion on finance. They went over what's allowed and not allowed. I will send this information to your business managers / accountants. They did make it very clear that administrators, including special ed directors, should not be paid from state special ed funds. Principals and things like that really couldn't be paid from either special ed state funds or IDA federal funds. And I'll send those specifics to your accountants on that. So that's the top to that out. Again, they just went over what's allowed and not allowed. They referred back to the FICAM checklist as far as what's allowed and not allowed. And just ask yourself the question, in the absence of special ed needs, would the cost exist? If it wouldn't exist, would be allowed under IDEA. Cost is generated by students without disabilities. Then no, it would not be allowed. I don't think you guys really deal a lot with that information. So if you have any specific questions on finance, let me know and I can direct you to the person responsible for that, or probably provide you with the information you need to answer your questions. They did have a discussion on Medicaid. I was hoping to be able to report some information differently to you than what I'm going to say, because basically Medicaid has not changed much. Again, charters have always been able to go to apply for Medicaid reimbursement for those students that are Medicaid eligible. However, in order to do that, you have to be part of, I don't know if they call it a consortium, but you have to join into a certain organization that houses the Medicaid information and does the time and effort. So in order to make that worth your time and effort, I guess, you would need to typically have right around 10 students that are in that C time code, with a lot of related services being provided to those students. There could be a situation that would arise where you could have one student whose needs were so severe and the cost so high that going for Medicaid reimbursement, if they're eligible, would be worth it. For example, if you had a student that required a full-time nurse from beginning of the day till end of the day, that is a student that we would want to look at getting Medicaid reimbursement if they're eligible, as well as completing the high cost form for them. But in general, unless you have at least 10 or more students that receive C services with related services included, quite a bit of related services, doing the Medicaid reimbursement is not worth it at this time. One thing that was discussed that I think is kind of concerning is what they have for ESSA. So that's the Elementary and Secondary Education Act. So again, that was the old No Child Left Behind. The state office is coming up with 2 new categories now to place the schools into. One is called targeted. Oh, I have the wrong acronym in your agenda for that. I'm sorry. But one's targeted support and intervention, and the other one is comprehensive support and intervention. So TSI and CSI. And now, no, it's not the TV show. And we're seeing more acronyms to add to your list of never-ending acronyms. So TSIs and CSIs relate to Title I funds for the most part. So the majority of our schools, with the exception of one, receive at least targeted Title I assistance. We have 2 schools that are school-wide Title I. These pertain particularly to the Title I schools, with one exception, which I'll mention. So I think the most concerning one is the targeted assistance category, and that is looking at schools and looking at the subcategories of students that are considered low performing. So these are the bottom 5% of schools that have had students in a subgroup, be it in special ed, ethnicity, low SES, English language learners. You have subgroups that are, again, low performing within the bottom 5% of Title I schools. You will then be put into targeted support and assistance, or targeted support and interventions, the TSI. And this also includes non-Title I schools with a graduation rate of 67% or below for any of the subgroups. So again, I think that's a concern for our high schools for sure, regardless if you take Title I funds or not. If you have graduation rates below 67% in any subgroups, you'll be put into the TSI group. Those that don't make certain growth as deemed appropriate by USBE will then move into the comprehensive support and intervention list. You're then overseen by the state office. Again, I think we still need to do some more clarification with the state when it comes to these two groups that they're going to be identifying schools into possibly. Because I do think we'll see more schools in these two areas than we have in the past. And when you're in the comprehensive support and intervention list, or whatever you want to call it, USBE will provide oversight and help you identify programs and things like that to improve on your scores. And I think I don't know if it'll be USBE or it'll be contract providers like it has been in the past. And again, you remember they're still called focus or turnaround schools. This is in addition to those, I believe. But I still think we need to do some reading out of information on those two areas, but just be aware that we expect to see an increase of schools being identified as low performing, be it in the TSI or CSI groups, simply because of the way they're looking at the data now and they're including subgroups. So I think, again, we've made strides forward in trying to bring special ed and general ed together. I think this just puts the divide back between those groups and English language learners as well, kind of marginalizing the already marginalized. So you can be identified as a special ed department. You're the reason why we are in the targeted support and intervention list. But it's unfortunate. I hope that USB relooks at this. I don't think that'll happen, but like I said, we'll provide you more information as it becomes available on that. Indicator 8, this applies to the high schools. So again, it's the post-school outcomes for students. The main thing they talked about was just establishing relationships with parents and how important that was in order to get that those surveys or those phone calls answers to get that information. It's just, again, looking at improving your relationships with parents and students. Tracy from the state office did quite an extensive presentation on accommodations as available on Utah Aspire Plus as well as RISE. There is a handout that I sent to Emily just before the meeting that goes over what those accommodations are, what's allowed, what's resources for all students. There are some issues that have arisen with the Utah Aspire Plus and certain things. Let me get to my specific notes. Again, we're talking Utah Aspire Plus, we're talking grades 9 and 10 only. They've got a different testing window, apparently. It's a shorter period of time to complete that. Again, some of those things are time for all students, regardless if they're IEPs. Again, look at that handout when it comes to look at those accommodations versus resources. Okay, on the scribing, you can't be using any kind of a cloud-based technology. There's been some talk about why Google Read and Write won't work, and that's the main reason why it can't be any kind of a cloud-based technology. For that, again, what works currently is the Dragon dictation. They are still testing, I guess, iPad and Windows for running the tests on those. Any standalone assistive technology, third party, those typically will work. If you are doing scribing or any assistive technology as such, you do need to make sure that you request that accommodation through USBE. And there's forms that they've not yet released that will need to be completed and sent to Tracy 3 weeks prior to the testing window. Again, I think for now we would use the same forms we used last year for that until we are given those new forms. Apparently, descriptive audio and text-to-speech are tied together this year. So again, you're doing a text-to-speech, the student automatically will get descriptive audio, which typically is for those individuals with low vision. However, something within the system has tied those two things together and they can't quote unquote unhook them. So if you have a text-to-speech thing, realize that the student will also be receiving descriptive audio, but next year that will be different. Remember, you have the PNP, the personal needs profile, that needs to be updated for students using any kind of a scribing or certain resources that then become accommodations. Utah Rise portals up online, it said. If you do have any students with low vision, please let me know, and I can get you in touch with the person at the state office. There are some things that they'll need to work with you on. Isn't it really bad when your handwriting gets to be so bad you can't even read your own writing? That's the point I think I'm getting at with some of these notes. End of February. Again, those of you that, I don't think anyone has any students that need Braille. If you did, then we would need to contact USBE as well and make sure it's pre-ordered.
Hold on just 1 second.
Yep.
Kristen Curtis said the sound is gone. Can we do a sound check?
Well, they can't hear you if it's gone.
I know, but if they can, then they will. Oh. Okay. Okay, I think we're good.
By the way, Emily's making us go on YouTube today, so I am on YouTube. I might become a YouTube sensation, watch out.
Yeah, everyone, make sure you click and subscribe.
Yeah, no, you're good.
Give us a thumbs up.
Oh my gosh, Emily. Seriously. All right. Any questions on anything we've covered so far? It's quite a bit.
Some people can hear, but some can't, is what it looks like.
Well, you better fix that then, Emily.
I better.
Okay. For those of you that can hear, let's give Emily just a few minutes to see if she can resolve the technological issues that are occurring. She's got a look that she's confused herself, so.
Yeah, I'm trying to. Yes.
For those of you that can hear, please reference that accommodation sheet that was uploaded in the Google Drive today for specifics regarding the information covered. Much more useful than what I have said, I believe, and probably clearer than as I've described it.
We want you to keep talking, Echo, so I can know if it's still a problem or not a problem. I might need to start the mic over.
Oh, jeez. Am I still talking? Nothing useful, right?
Okay, let's try again. Can you guys hear us? Hello, hello.
Testing, 1, 2, 3, testing.
We can hear Echo. Lost that about 5 minutes ago.
Ah, jeez. The YouTube, Emily. YouTube.
Okay, they can hear us now. No, it was join me.
Oh, shoot. Still going to start over. So for those of you that lost sound sometime during our discussion on accommodations, I believe, if you will reference the accommodation document that was uploaded onto the Google Drive this afternoon, that should give you everything and then more than what I even discussed. So again, please reference that if you have any questions about the accommodations when it comes to Utah Aspire Plus or Rise. And then I was just stopping to pause if there were any questions on anything we've covered so far. Sorry if that's a repeat for some people, but with you.
I'm going to take a screenshot of participants so we can give you credit. There's one person at North Davis Prep that is on the phone, and I need your name so I can make sure you get credit. Any questions?
If there's no questions, we'll go on to the next item under USEAM, and that was the behavior training. There are two different behavior trainings being given out by USBE. Specifically, one is School Discipline Summit. It is 3 different sessions. I recommend that you give this information to your administrators. I will also pass it on. It's January 8th, March 5th, and April 2nd. They're in the mornings from about 8:30 to 12:30, and they have some pretty big names that are going to be presenting. Emily forwarded you an email last week regarding this, so you should actually have that specific information in your inbox. It's appropriate for administrators, especially directors, to attend if you can. We also went over another training available, and that is the superheroes. So again, I think some of you currently use this program. It has a lot of success, particularly for your elementary students. Again, it has social skills training, and that is available. A north session is February 12th. It's an all day. And the south session is February 19th. Carol Anderson also went over something else, which is a functional behavioral assessment for absenteeism and truancy. And that training is going to be held March 6th. If you're interested in any of those, I think the handouts or /flyers are available on the Google Drive. Along with those trainings, keep in mind that the UPDN has a variety of trainings available, as well as webinars. Webinars cover things such as functional assessment, patterns of strength and weakness. There's all sorts of things available on the webinars, as well as live trainings they do. So again, if you periodically check in on their website to get that information, and I also know they send out quite a few emails in regards to trainings they're offering. That was about the gist of USEAM on the November 30th. So let's go into a few things that I have in addition to the USEAM. One was, remember, you have data drill downs again this year. Apparently they're formatted slightly different than they have been in the past. I don't know what that means. They start in February and they run through the month of February. 3 or 4 different ones are available at different sites. That information you can find, I think, in your October or November speedometer. Again, it's recommend one person from the special ed department, typically the lead, attend those if possible. And USB will go over your data with you, how do you incorporate that data into your program improvement plan, etc. Just so you all know, for those students that are the 1% students, there is the new extended core standards for science available. And again, these are only for grades 6 through 8. There's also webinars available. You can find that information as far as the webinars go on USBE's website, Special Ed Significant Cognitive Disabilities tab. There's some the AT discussions come up again this year, assistive technology and students using assistive technology. There's a checklist available, which is on the Google Drive, that can help IEP teams work through if an assistive technology device would be useful for the student. as well as if you need to refer the student for an assistive technology evaluation. Again, that is a resource available to all LEAs free of charge from the state office. Those of you that are part of CSPED and you pay for membership, you have the charter assistive technology team as well. But there is a general assistive technology team available to all districts. One thing I did not put on here, but I did send out an email on it. Please realize UPIPS is back online. It is temporary. It is just for this year. It's running the same as it has been in the past. So that's the system that you will use to do file checks, file compliance for the end of the year requirement, as well as we'll continue to submit your end of year reports using that system. But beginning next year, there will be a different system in place that will cover UPIPS, but they've yet to determine that. So they made it very clear, though, that it's a temporary fix for now. And then again, next year, there'll be something different. The next item is lottery letters, and this is something that Emily is going to discuss.
So with all the concerns with student data privacy, we were sending out lottery letters saying the student's name has just completed a registration packet and indicated they were special ed either previously or currently. And for student privacy reasons, we are no longer putting in the student's name. We are going to, well, it's currently showing the parent name. And what you guys can do is check in with the office, and the office can give you the name of the student, or you can check in with the office and see if the office is able to give you read-only access to the lottery, so you have, or so you can look at the names of the students. And you have access to run the lottery. Like I said, read-only, so you can look up the student's name that they indicated they were either previously or currently a special ed student. If anyone is on YouTube, I saw a couple people started out in YouTube, but because we started late, they were nervous. If there's anyone watching on YouTube, let me know. I'm curious to see how it's working out.
Something else that's not on your agenda, but I think needs to be addressed. I've addressed it with at least some of you face to face, but it comes down to listing accommodations on the IEP. The recommendation I'm making at this point is to be as specific as possible when it comes to accommodations for students. Again, defining it more so than just as needed, because that really opens up a can of worms as far as when is it needed, who does it, has it been done before, et cetera, et cetera. So when you can define it more specifically, that is best. And again, if at all possible, keeping some documentation on when students access those accommodations is helpful if you're ever in a situation where something around accommodations played a part in some kind of a due process. But again, trying to define accommodations more specifically than just as needed, because that really leaves a lot of leads to a lot of subjectivity with them, and I think can open you up to some potential state complaints and things like that surrounding that. That is all I have.
They like my YouTube.
Oh, whatever. Anyway, happy holidays to all of you. Enjoy your break, and we'll see you in the new year. If you do have any questions, feel free to stay on and ask them. But besides that, happy holidays.
Thank you, Cindy.
Yeah. Any questions or no? What are you doing now?
Pulling out of everything.
Oh.